Hi everyone, my name's Paul. Welcome to Plan Your Patch. So today what we're going to be talking about is jalapenos and how to pickle them and how to make the most of them. Now, what you'll first notice with these jalapenos is they're all red, and this is actually our second harvest of this plant, all these plants. There's a couple of plants here, and this is what we've ended up with our pickling. Now, when you buy pickled jalapenos commercially, you almost always buy them when they're green. You won't see like we've got a couple of red ones in there. Now, the reason that they do that is because when jalapenos are grown, basically they start as green and they turn to red, and it doesn't make a great deal of difference in terms of the flavour and that sort of thing. So they pick them early, so it's quicker and they get more benefit out a better commercial product in terms of profitability, so they don't have to leave the plants in as long. Whereas what we've done is picked our first lot which were all green, and we've been a little bit slow to pick them, and now they're turning all red. So if we have a look, that's a nice looking chili. And so the obvious question when you're picking these things is, well, what difference does it actually make? Well, basically all that's happening is that the fruit's ripening, so they get a little bit sweeter. And in terms of heat, I've actually got an academic study which talks about what happens to the heat of chilies, not specifically jalapenos, but in general. Do they get hotter? Do they get cooler? And the answer to that is they do develop heat over time. And where they become the hottest is when they're in that halfway between red and green. So this sort of stage here, that will be when the chili is at its absolute hottest, and when it turns fully red, it gets a little less heat in them. So there is, it does affect when you pick them up just a little bit in terms of heat. But what I've found also is that because I'm a little bit lazy with watering these things, is that if you have a dry year and you haven't watered them enough, they actually get hotter. So we noticed a couple of years ago we pickled some chilies, and they were much hotter than previous years, even though they're exactly the same variety. We'd actually grown them from the seeds from some of these things left from the same plant, and they produced just much hotter chilies. And so watering does have probably a bigger effect than the ripening time. And the last thing we kind of want to mention to make people aware that this particular chili plant we're looking at here, which is one of the bigger ones, is one that we've actually had for 2 or 3 years. We haven't actually taken it out of the ground. It's gone through our winter here. It's survived the cold, and that's one of the misconceptions with the chilies in general, is that generally people treat them as annuals, but the reality is they're actually perennials if they're in a frost-free environment or close to it, and they're not super sensitive. So where we're living, because of climate change, we very rarely get those days below zero. So if you have those, you can actually get a bit of a head start, and this is why we're getting 2 harvests instead of 1, where you can just leave the plant in, or if you've got colder conditions, you can actually dig it up and move it out and then bring it back out in the spring to get those earlier crops. Anyway, so what we're going to do now is harvest everything we've got, which I'll show a quick camera angle of all the chilies we have and what the harvest is, and then we'll go inside and show you the recipe we use to pickle them. Now, once you have your jalapenos inside, the next important step is to cut them all up. Now, I've already done that before I started the video, and if you want to have the ones that are pretty similar to what you can purchase in the stores when you buy pickled jalapenos, you can cut them fairly thick. However, it doesn't really matter. And once you have that, then we're basically ready to start filling the jars. Now, with the jars, what I've already done is I've sterilised the jars with hot water. Some people will go to the extent of putting it in the oven. I don't worry about that, simply because the way we make this pickle is using basically pouring the liquid directly onto the jalapeno, so it gets exposed to boiling water anyway, so there's usually not any problems with sterilisation. So basically what you want to do is fill your jars as best as you can, and you can stuff the jalapenos down a little bit. Okay, so they're filling up the jar. We've got a couple of jars here, so we'll quickly do that. And then we can talk a little bit about the the brine. So with the brine, and I can talk as I'm filling, with the brine, it's a really simple one that's used. So basically, it's a 1-to-1 mixture of vinegar and water. So basically, if you have 1 cup of vinegar, you have 1 cup of water. Now, for every cup of vinegar, you add yourself so for each lot of cups, so if you have a cup of vinegar and a cup of water, you can add yourself 1 heaped teaspoon of salt and 1/3 of a cup of sugar. And that's pretty much the ratio. So in my case, I've doubled the ratio to make sure I've got plenty of liquid. And then the only thing you've really got to do, and I've got the liquid already sitting there, I just haven't added the salt and the sugar, is you need to bring it to a boil to dissolve the sugar and the salt, and that's pretty much it. So we'll come back in just a second once I've made up the brine and got all of my chilies all ready to go, and we'll finish off this little job. Okay, so we've now got our boiling hot brine, which only took a couple of minutes to boil, and all you really need to do is pour the liquid over, being really carefully not to spill it or anything, and fill it right to the very top to make sure that you cover all of your jalapenos, and right to the top. And essentially all you then need to do is, once you've sealed it, and I obviously won't bore you by doing the other ones, is to then seal the jalapenos in, and I usually like to give a good invert, and basically once you've sealed it, that will create a vacuum seal. And essentially what you need to do is just simply wait until the pickles age the bottle a couple of days, so you'll get this sort of, this is one we've made that's quite a few weeks old, that has that sort of drunken look to it. And once they have that, the jalapenos are ready to eat. That typically takes a couple of days, but you can see it's really easy pickle to make. Fantastic, and this lasts for ages. Most people tend to say, you know, a year or 2. I can tell you now, we made a huge lot a couple of years ago, and we ate every single jar. It just took several months to do it. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you in the next video. Cheers, guys.